Good evening, everyone. As you can see, we're fighting a bug. Some of us are fighting bugs. So before we get started, I just want to explain why we're looking like, what did you say, 2020 again?
Yeah,
we have had a bout of COVID going through the City Hall administration offices. I have a cold, but I've tested negative for COVID, so I'm here. We have no parameters for the City Council to be able to use Zoom for meetings, and because it was such a late notice and we have important items, we are going to modify our agenda a little bit. I'm going to ask a little bit of a patience tonight as my head isn't completely clear, but I'm going to try my hardest to get us through this meeting as quick as possible. I've made some suggestions that we'll talk about once we open the meeting, but again, just out of abundance of caution, we're taking the precautions to make sure that we're all safe. We'll be working as quick as we can to get our staff members, who some of them are online and in the building, out of here as quick as possible so that they can stay healthy. With that said, I will open the City of Desert Hot Springs regular meeting of the City Council, and the City Council serving as a successor agency to the former Redevelopment Agency Board for Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. This is our 6 p.m. regular session. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Betts.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner.
Present.
Councilmember Pai.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Nunez.
Here.
And Mayor Mattis.
Present. We're going to skip our invocation tonight as the individual that was going to give our invocation is ill. We're going to move to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise and place your hand over your heart. And join with me in pledging to our nation's flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You will notice our city attorney, I asked him not to drive all the way from Riverside area out here, to stay home. He didn't argue much with me on that one. Mr. Stream is sitting in for Jennifer Mizrahi today, and we did not have a quorum for our closed session due to the fact that we were going to push those two items due to the illnesses running through City Hall. So we have nothing to report on closed session. Is that correct, Mr. Stream?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. With that said, we're going to go to the approval of the agenda. In the approving of the agenda, we can approve all consent calendar items. We can also, I'm asking that the council approve the tabling of item 6. I will modify the order of the rest of the items because they are time sensitive. Before we do any approvals of the consent calendar or the modification of the agenda, do we have anyone that would like to speak on the consent calendar? Yes, Ms. Turner. Please come on up. You'll push the button. It'll turn red. And you can state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. And please note, I'm assuming you're speaking on item number 11, the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending several chapters of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code dealing with cannabis regulations.
I am. And I have that same cold. I thought I got it from all of the music festivals, but I guess it's going around, and I tested myself, and I was tested not for COVID as well. So there's definitely a bug. My name is Paula Turner, and I'm on the board of CVCAN. And as you know, CVCAN is a nonprofit membership organization that seeks to provide reasonable and productive voice for the cannabis industry throughout the Coachella Valley. It is our goal to create cohesion and best practices for our members, thus improving the industry. CVCAN is full support of the staff recommendations on item 11 to amend the cannabis ordinance, including the 6-month cultivation tax ramp-up period for any new cultivation facilities and no longer requiring the 24-hour security, armed guard security. Thank you very much. We are also in agreement to table the cannabis cultivation tax for further review. As you have heard from us in the past, CVCAN is recommending the cannabis tax to be lowered to $5 per square foot on mature plants in order to be competitive to other cities such as Palm Springs. CVCAN does recommend tabling the definition for space. We agree with the July 5th staff report where staff recommendation modifying the definition of cultivation space which would be consistent with more jurisdictions. Most jurisdictions tax on mature plant canopy and not on all living plant areas. We feel the definition for space should be simple and be taxed on the designated areas where mature plants are grown and not include the aisles and walkways. If the city wants to tax on living plant areas, the definition of space itself is not consistent and has discrepancies. For instance, if state canopy space is defined of all stages of growth cycle of marijuana plants where live plants are present, but then contradicts itself in the definition by stating the areas used for topping, pinching, cropping are excluded. Topping, pitching, and cropping are all parts of the things you do to a living plant that is proposed in the taxable area. Another discrepancy is space used in harvesting phase is proposed to be taxed, but excluded from the taxes in the area used for curing and drying marijuana. CVCAM believes that you cure and dry the marijuana in the harvesting phase, and this area should not be taxed. At a minimum, CVCAM would recommend that all words in paragraph 3.35.40 have a definition. An example is horizontal canopy space. It's not clear if horizontal canopy space includes the actual plant canopy or the entire room, including the aisles and walkways. In conclusion, CVCAN agrees with the staff's recommendation, but requests that paragraph 3.35.40 of the ordinance that defines, can't read my writing here, defines the definition of canopy be revised.
Ms. Turner, that's 3
Thank you for
minutes.
your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak on any of the 3 items on the consent calendar? On the consent calendar?
Yes, sir.
Which item, Tom?
The same one she was speaking of.
Okay, please come forward.
Thank you.
We're on the consent calendar, yes.
I'm Tom Moen. I'm a 44-year resident of Desert Hot Springs. And this issue is one that some people consider controversial. I consider it settled. We have our marijuana cultivation and it's going to be here. And I've heard that the main topic under concern is how much the tax is supposed to be. When I was a teenager, I worked for a gentleman who was running for president of the United States. His name was Ronald Reagan. And I was quite effective in organizing his meeting to the Republican convention in Washington State in 1976. I have a nice thank you letter from him. And he had a progressive idea at that time for dynamic accounting on taxes, where you take a look at where you set the tax, and if you set it at a lower point, you may have more revenue. If you set it at a higher point, you may have less revenue because you have to find that sweet spot on the amount of the tax. The conventional wisdom at the time was static accounting. If you add $10 to a tax, you're going to collect $10. If you took $10 off a tax, you're going to be short $10. Well, he proved through the 1980s that this dynamic accounting on tax revenue worked. So I'd like to urge our city council to adopt that dynamic accounting to consider where that sweet spot is and balance between where revenue is maximized and commerce is maximized also. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on any items on the consent calendar? There's 3 items. Which item would you like to speak on?
Number 8.
Number 8's not on the consent calendar. That'll actually be, you're speaking on the purchase of the cardiovascular fitness equipment?
Yes, sir.
That'll be an item that we're going to take up separately.
Okay.
Anyone else on the consent calendar? We'll close public comments on the consent calendar and the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
Consent calendar and then the modification of the agenda tabling item 6?
What are we doing with the item 11 that the public just spoke on? We're just accepting that as is?
Correct, that's what the motion is. There is a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
We're going to go into public comment this time. Anyone that would like to speak in public comments that are not on the agenda, items not on the agenda, you'll need to fill out a blue card or let the city clerk know. I only have one that's been turned in. Mr. Moen?
Thank you. Again, Tom Moen, 44-year resident of Desert Hot Springs. And our name is Desert Hot Springs, and I think sometimes we forget the very fundamentals of our town, as I mentioned before. Mr. Yerxa and Mr. Coffey were both advocates of the health and wellness of our natural hot mineral water. And we used to be full of mom and pop spas in this town, and they've been disappearing and disappearing and disappearing. I think that our city should have some kind of a commission or similar organization to safeguard our hot water, to safeguard our hot water facilities. In my own family, my grandmother, who's the reason why I came to town, came here to Desert Hot Springs on the recommendation of her sister, because she had had a double hip surgery and it was a flop. And the doctor told her to get used to sitting in that wheelchair because she was going to be in it for the rest of her life. And she lived a good 25 years after that surgery. Well, she came here to Desert Hot Springs and got into our natural hot water. And she started recovering. She started walking better. And after she'd been here about 3 months, she put the wheelchair up for sale and sold it because she didn't need it anymore and she wanted to burn that bridge. So let's consider the real asset that we have. We talk so much about so many things, but this is a great natural resource, and I think God blessed our city with it, and I think we should focus more on that. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Moen. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on any items not on the agenda today? I see nobody coming forth. We'll close public comments. If there's no objections from the City Council, I'd like to skip City Manager's report and Mayor and Council comments reports tonight to try to move this meeting along, and anything we need to report, we'll have plenty of time by the next meeting to report out on that. Okay. I don't see anybody jumping up and down, and I don't see staff running up and down saying they want to report. So apologize to the public, but with everyone out sick, it's going to be a little difficult. So we're going to move directly into the public hearings tonight. Yeah, we're going to move right into the public hearings tonight, and we're going to start with, I'm going to jump around a little bit tonight because I want to get certain staff members in and out. So item number 3 is specific plan number SP21-1, mitigated negative declaration, ENV 23-4, and monitoring plan and development permit number 23.5 for the Desert Storage Project and proposed development of recreational vehicle storage facilities along Dillon Road. Mr. Clark, I know you're zoomed in there, and you'll be giving the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Patricia Villagomez.
Patricia's giving the report. Got it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, good evening. The specific plan site consists of 2 parcels and is located on the south side of Dillon Road and west of Palm Drive within the mixed-use corridor zoning district, as shown here. The existing Desert Self-Storage development is located on the eastern parcel on a fully developed 4.3-acre site that was built in 1986, consisting of 742 self-storage units. On March 29, 2021, the applicant Salvis Marino submitted a specific plan application, a mitigated negative declaration, and a development permit. The Desert Storage specific plan proposes a development of a recreational vehicle storage facility adjacent to the already existing self-storage facility. The 2 storage facilities would be linked by an internal sidewalk that would share a perimeter wall to provide a uniform frontage. At completion, the project will consist of 63,600 square feet RV storage lot with a caretaker's unit, 145 RV parking spaces, with 78 spaces being solar covered and 67 spaces remaining uncovered. The table shown here is a comparison of the land uses permitted in the specific plan with the general plan zoning allowable land uses. A development permit application is required for the development of a storage outdoor recreation vehicles facility, which is one of the items before you tonight. The current development standards assigned to mixed-use corridor zones still apply to the SP area with some modifications to the maximum and minimum setbacks. Shown here is a comparison between the city's existing mixed-use corridor standards and the proposed specific plan standards. The desert storage specific plan proposes landscaping that is suitable for the desert conditions using water-efficient vegetation to soften and complement the appearance of the development. Landscaping will be designed to visually enhance the development and appearance of perimeter walls, as well as providing additional screening and shade. On September 12, 2023, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the City Council for approval with the following added conditions. The applicant or developer shall remove the barbed wire and paint the existing block wall on the eastern site to match the new wall installed on the western site prior to any certificate of occupancy issuance, and that the applicant or developer shall install landscape to the existing eastern site to have a uniform and cohesive frontage. A draft mitigated negative declaration has been prepared in accordance with the CEQA guidelines section 15070 subsection A that determine that development of the proposed project will not have a significant impact on the environment with the implementation of mitigation measures. And with that, this is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Desert Hot Springs, California for the following. 1, to adopt the mitigated negative declaration, ENV 23-4 and monitoring plan. 2, approve desert storage specific plan number SP 21-1. 3, approve development permit number 23-5. And read and introduce by title only an ordinance adding chapter 17.250, an application for the desert storage specific plan, and develop a recreational vehicle storage facility Dillon Road, LLC, for APN 657-220-023 and 003, subject to the conditions of approval and findings. That concludes my report. I'm available if you have any questions, and the applicant is also here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll entertain any questions this time for staff. Do we have any specific questions for staff?
I only have one for Patricia.
Yes.
Patricia, did this project include maybe solar panels on at any point for the coverage or just the office?
So the covered parking for some of the RV storage will have solar on them.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? See none. You can try to use the queue too if you want to. Tonight I'll try to watch it. I have no other questions for staff at this time. We'll open the public hearing and take any testimony from the applicant or anyone in favor. Does the applicant would like to speak to the council?
Yes, thank you. Salvis Marinos, applicant. By way of history, we have owned the existing self-storage facility. I would like to have the opportunity to upgrade that because it's about 35 years old in conformance with a new RV storage and make it one state-of-the-art RV and self-storage facility. We've had the property next door to the west probably for about 20 years, and it's long overdue. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to develop it and improve that part of Dillon Road and see the future of that entire corridor improve.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in favor of the project, in opposition or a neutral position of the project would like to speak to the council?
I have a statement in favor.
I'm sorry?
I have a statement in favor.
Sure.
Again, Tom Moen, 44-year resident of Desert Hot Springs. I've been living here a long time, and a lot of people get cited for having their RVs parked wrong at their home. And having a good RV storage facility will be an aid and benefit to many of your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor, opposition, or neutral position of this item? This time we'll close the public hearing and we will go to City Council discussion. Anyone have any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion if I could.
Yes, please.
Motion to adopt the specific plan SP 21-1 mitigated negative declaration ENV 23.4 and monitoring plan and development permit number 23-5 for the desert storage project, a proposed development of a recreational vehicle storage facility along Dillon Road, and accepting and including the recommendations of the Planning Commission as outlined by staff.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Motion and a second. There's no further comments. I have nobody in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Betts, your, thanks.
Motion passes unanimously. This is an ordinance of the City Council adding Chapter 17.250, an application for a desert storage specific plan and develop a recreational vehicle storage facility on Dillon Road LLC. The ordinance will return at the next meeting for a second reading and adoption.
Thank you. Our next public hearing will be an ordinance amending chapter of Title 17, Zoning Code, Chapter 17.12, Commercial Districts, and in effect terminating the urgency interim ordinances approved by the City Council on January 17th, 2023, and on May 2nd, 2023, restricting uses in the downtown area. Mr. Clark?
Mr. Mayor, before we begin, I have a proximity recusal. My wife and I own a hair salon at 12084 Palm Drive, which is in the area affected by this ordinance, and therefore I will be recusing and leaving the dais.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clark, Mr. Betts is off the dais. You can start your staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully you can hear me well. This is only one chapter so far that we're presenting you this evening, Chapter 17.12, Commercial Districts. Some of the changes that have been made to this chapter, including removing visitor serving commercial zone from the chapter to be combined with visitor serving mixed use. What we're going to be doing is creating a whole separate visitor serving district chapter with these two parts. We reorganized the design standards into a table for ease of use, moved up guidelines below design standards as we are doing with each of the chapters in the zoning ordinance, generally changed the permitted uses table to be less restrictive. For example, some cases, some uses were requiring a CUP and changed to a staff level AUP. Added some of the new uses that we discussed over the last year, including mobile food vending parks, event facilities, that sort of thing. The big change here is adding the ability to develop multifamily residential and live-work uses in the downtown commercial district. So this is being done to encourage more mixed-use projects, especially vertical mixed-use projects to our downtown. We also added the ability to develop residential care facilities, also known as senior living centers, in neighborhood commercial, general commercial, and downtown commercial. We made minor modifications to some of the specific standards sections. We did add an outdoor sales and display section with the requirements. You'll recall that we removed the PUP requirement for outdoor sales and display, but we put in some requirements, regulations around those. And we removed many of the regulations surrounding tattoo and body piercing establishments. Some of the changes that the Planning Commission made included removed mini malls, also known as strip malls, as a permitted use in the downtown commercial district. We pretty much have allowed tattoo and body piercing establishments as a permitted use in all commercial zoning districts. And there was a table within that chapter 17.1202, sort of a matrix of the specific standard for the uses. It was kind of confusing to everybody, so we just eliminated it and added that information to the main table on permitted uses. So with this change, we would recommend approving amendments to Chapter 17.12, Commercial Districts, and find the project category exempt from SEPA pursuant to Section 15061B3. And this ordinance will rescind the moratorium established on January 12, 2023 and May 2nd, 2023 concerning allowable uses in the downtown essence, staff and the planning commission have done their job in reviewing all the uses in the downtown district. And so with the passage of this ordinance, that work is complete. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the report. We'll move to entertain questions of staff from the city council. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see anybody in the queue. I see shaking hands. All right, we'll open the public hearing at this time. We'll take any testimony in favor, opposed, or neutral position of this item. See nobody coming forth. We're going to close the public hearing and we'll move to city council discussion or a motion.
I move we adopt the ordinance amending Chapter Title 17 Zoning Code, Chapter 17.12 Commercial Districts, and in effect terminating the urgency interim ordinance approved by the City Council, restricting uses in the downtown area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second, and I just want to echo this. Thank you for the hard work. This looks great. I can't wait to put it into place and get the downtown moving. So thank you, Travis and staff. Thank you.
Move if you want a second on the screen. No further comments. Well, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously. This is a first reading of an ordinance as read by title, which will return on November 7th for second reading and adoption.
Thank you very much. Mr. Betts is back in the room. We're going to move to the administrative calendar. Item number 5 is the assignment of the development agreement from Skyborne Ventures to Lennar Homes. Before the staff report begins, my company I work for in property management, Desert Management, which is a branch of the associate company, manages the property for Skyborne. It actually manages 2 of the HOAs within Skyborne. And so the FPPC has ruled that I should recuse myself on this item. So I'll be giving this item over to Mayor Pro Tem Nunez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff report, please, once he leaves the room.
Good evening, City Council. On August 9th, 2023, the City Council approved the First Amendment to the Skyborne Development Agreement, paving the way for the project to continue. To date, there are approximately 332 homes that have been completed, with another 31 under construction. The owner, Skyborne Ventures, is currently working with national home builder Lennar for the construction of 286 homes in Village 3, which you can see highlighted on the screen currently, contingent upon the execution of the assignment of the development agreement, which is attached as Exhibit 1 to the staff report. Execution of the assignment of development agreement will effectively transfer all obligations, rights, title, and interest in and to the associated development agreement with respect to the subject property to Lennar. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. At this time, we'll open up for public comment. Hearing and seeing none, any discussion for council to staff? Any questions?
I move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
By way of brief comment, it's nice to welcome Lennar officially into our community. Although they've been here a while, it's nice to see them getting codified in this change.
Thank you. Gerald, just for the record, Mrs. Pai, Councilwoman Pai second the motion.
Motion passes unanimously.
He got it right.
We've tabled item 6. We're going to jump to item 8, which is purchase new cardiovascular fitness equipment for the Desert Hot Springs Health and Wellness Center. Ms. Cernick.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As part of our commitment to providing our residents with a high-quality fitness center and enhancing their overall experience, we have identified a need to upgrade our current cardio fitness equipment at the Health and Wellness Center. The current cardio fitness equipment has been in use since 2012, and several machines are showing signs of wear, have limited functionality, or no longer work. Staff has identified the need to purchase and replace 4 treadmills, 2 recumbent bikes, 1 stationary bike, 2 ellipticals, 2 stride trainers, and 1 stair climber or arm cycle. The proposed purchase of the new cardio equipment aligns with our mission to provide outstanding health and wellness services to our community. This investment will yield substantial benefits in terms of member satisfaction and overall facility safety. Staff requested proposals from qualified vendors and received 2 responsive proposals. Based upon pricing, availability, quality, warranty, staff selected Growth Fitness Design as the preferred vendor for the replacement equipment. Growth Fitness Design has demonstrated competitive pricing, reliable and expedited availability of the equipment, and showcased a commitment to high quality standards, and also provided an extensive warranty. The existing equipment that is in working order will be donated to the Desert Hot Springs Senior Center. The cardio equipment will be a valuable addition to the facility and promote health and wellness among the seniors. That concludes my report, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I know we do have at least one public comment, ma'am, and it's your turn. Just state your name and your 3 minutes will begin.
My name is Kathy Malott. I've lived here in Desert Hot Springs about 10 years, and I just recently had double knee total replacements, and the doctor insisted upon following physical therapy. I went to the wellness center, and it was an affordable price for me. It was a good location. I use it 2 to 3 times a week faithfully, and it is a great benefit to all of us here in Desert Hot Springs. Thank you
for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak in the audience on this item?
Hi, Kent Anderson. I also use the gym. I've been there about 3 years now, and I fully agree with Roberta. We need to replace that equipment. There's a lot of people from the city that go there and work out, and it's a great asset. And Jaime, who works there, has been doing his darndest to keep that equipment going, and some of it just gave up the ghost, and he can't get it repaired or up and running. So please approve this.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else like to speak on this item? On this item, sir? I'm sorry, I said on this item. Did you want to speak on item number 8?
No, I just got public comment.
Okay, we have to wait till that item then. Anyone on item 8, would you like to speak on this item? Okay. With that said, we'll close the public comments. We'll move to council member comments. Anybody have any comments?
I will echo the comments of Mr. Anderson and our lovely lady with the double knee surgery. And it is one of the best values in town. For those of you that don't know, if you're a Desert Hot Springs resident, for $50 a year, you can go work out at this gym at the fitness center. It's the best buy around. And yeah, the equipment's getting a little old and clunky. And with new knee replacement, trust me, I know, you don't want old clunky equipment. It needs to go smooth or you're going to clunk, right? So anyway, I'm happy to make a motion to approve this.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other comment? Go ahead.
So correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know, when this building, that whole building was basically given to the city for free through some arrangements that these councils made in the past. And I think the equipment was originally donated, am I correct, by Desert Recreation or Desert Healthcare District?
Might have been at the time.
So we really have never ever bought equipment for this before. So this would be the first time that we're actually buying equipment for this facility. So it's about time. It's been there, since 2014, if I recollect. So sounds like you guys are all wearing it out. So that's good. It's time for replacement, and I wholeheartedly support this.
Yes, it's good about the cardio equipment going to the senior center. It's a good complement to what they already have. That's it.
Great. The only comment I have is the equipment that's going to the senior center, some of it cannot be fixed. Is there, the stuff that's going to the senior center is been fixed? Okay, so we're not going to give them something that's not going to work. Yeah, got it. Okay. With that said, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're going to go to item number 9, Clean California Local Grant Program, Award of Grants. Ms. Ferris.
Thank you. On April 26, 2023, the City of Desert Hot Springs applied for 2 grants for the Clean California Local Grant Program. And on October 9, 2023, the city was awarded both grants the city had applied for. The first grant is for a total of $5 million for the construction of the Corporate Yard Park located at Hacienda Avenue and Choya Drive, which will include the installation of a football field and baseball field. Staff is working with local organizations to make sure the fields meet the current standards and with the current technology. The second grant is for a total of $2.999 million for the construction of Hacienda Avenue Street Improvement Project, which extends from West Drive to Tamar Drive. This project will rehabilitate the roadway and install bike lanes, meandering sidewalks with landscaping and safety lighting throughout the project. Both projects will provide a benefit to the community and beautify the surrounding area. As a requirement of the CLEAN grant, the city must provide a resolution that designates the individual who is authorized to execute the restricted grant agreement. Staff recommends that City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute agreements and their amendments, if any, with the California Department of Transportation for the participation in the Clean California Local Grant Program. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We'll open up the public comments. Would anybody like to make any public comments? Can't you only get two a meeting? So no, I'm joking.
Well, I got one more coming
I know
up.
you did.
Kent Anderson, I'd just like to say we've been waiting a long time for that park over there at the at the yard, and I think it's a great thing. Dress it up. The whole city will be able to use the baseball field, the football field. It's fantastic. So if we can get this moving, I really think it's great. So hopefully you'll approve it.
Any other public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve, figuring everybody else is going to want to do the same.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
And I just want to make a couple comments. I know there's a couple others. We're excited about this grant. I know people say, well, you're building another baseball field. We're not building another baseball field. We're building a baseball field that we don't have, which is a 90-foot field for our senior players here in the community. There's a lot of kids in our community that don't get to play high school ball because once you get to high school, you're picked to play if you're good enough. Sometimes you're not. So we share fields with the high school. We're always trying to rent fields or work out agreements, and it's going to be very important, let alone our I keep saying junior All-American, it's youth football program is much needed. Their own space is much needed, and this will open up Mission Springs Park for more soccer activities. So this is going to be a win-win for the full community with youth sports. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One quick question, Ms. Ferris, if I could. If I recall, this is a shovel-ready project, so do we have any kind of a timeline?
Yeah, based upon the grants, construction has to be completed by August 2026. So we are going to be moving very fast with it. Yeah, the construction plans are pretty much done and the RFP package is being compiled as we speak.
And once we start construction, timeline?
Well, obviously before August 2026. I don't know the exact timeline yet.
Sounds good. Thank you.
But it has to be done before that, so.
Mr. Betts?
I'm feeling a little guilty being the one to motion. I just wanted to ask the city attorney if it's possible that everybody here could make that motion, because I know everybody wants this park. No? Okay.
No, I think you need to have one council member make the motion.
All right. Well, then I'm going to claim it. Thanks.
Ms. Pye?
Yes, the whole council did support this early on, and now we've got the money to do it. But particularly who wanted it was Mayor Pro Tem Nunez and the mayor, because they've been looking for parks, so congratulations.
Thanks. Mr. Nunez, anything?
I'm at a loss for words. I just want to see Mr. Anderson advertising for his personal trainer business at the park and at the gym. Sorry.
And not to dismiss the fact that we got almost $3 million for road improvements too along Hacienda is going to be very important. There's really nice sidewalks and bike lanes and everything that's going to go in to make that street much more safe for individuals traveling along there. So this is great work by our city staff and our lobbyists in Sacramento that working to get this money for our city. So it's really, really awesome.
And I'll, if I can, this is going to be hopefully the start of many more opportunities we have for parks that should have been done a long time ago, and we're finding the money, finding now to get it done. So hopefully this is the first of many to come in the next couple of years. So thank you.
Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to the last item on the consent calendar. I'm sorry, the administrative calendar. I told you it was going to catch me. I had the administrative calendar. Item number 7, which is the amendment to the vacation rental regulations. Ms. Newsom?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I bring before you tonight amendments to the vacation rental regulations, and I apologize in advance. This is going to be quite a long presentation.
You have to pull the mic closer to your mask there. Thank you.
So to provide some background, on July 5th, the City Council approved city staff recommendations to bring forward an ordinance to amend the vacation rental regulations as follows. 1, to institute a citywide cap on vacation rental licenses at 4% of total housing parcels. 2, to restrict new applicants for vacation rental licenses from being within 500 feet measured from door to door of existing vacation rentals. 3, to realign regulations for vacation rentals for noise, trash cans, and parking to the same regulations used for residential properties. 4, to modify the occupancy regulations for vacation rentals. And 5, to require vacation rental platforms to remit TOT directly to the city and to remove vacation rental advertisements from their platforms for unpermitted or non-compliant operators. So in Chapter 5.44.080 for operational requirements and standard conditions, we've removed the requirement for no outdoor music, radios, musical instruments, or other devices, and rather we will have vacation rentals comply with noise regulations set forth in Chapter 8.12. We've also removed the regulation for no outdoor amenities or outdoor games or any other outdoor activities that create noise between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., which will also in line with them with vacation rentals having to abide by Chapter 8.12. The reason for this is that these both of these regulations were unreasonable and indefensible. Under H, we have removed the requirements for trash removals with respect to vacation rentals, so they will comply like all other residential properties with Chapter 8.04 of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code. And then lastly, under complaints for requirements for vacation rental property owners, when responding to a complaint, they no longer need to respond physically to the property, but rather just contact the occupant. We had some questions at the last City Council meeting when we brought forward the recommendations with respect to how we would then regulate sort of noise and enforce. And so I kind of wanted to give you an overview of Title 8 and how we would enforce moving forward based on Title 8 and how noise disturbances are determined. So under 8.12.030, it's unlawful and a public nuisance for any person to make, suffer, permit, allow, continue, or cause to be made a noise disturbance within 200 feet or thereof in the city limits. And we do that based on factors. So there's factors to determine whether a violation of that chapter occurs. And they're related to things like volume, level, intensity of noise, whether the nature of the noise is unusual. There's things like proximity of noise to residential or commercial sleeping areas, and the density of inhabitation of area within which the noise emanates. In addition to that, the use of operation of any sound production or reproduction device is prohibited between the hours of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. the following day in such a manner as to create a noise disturbance across a real property boundary. To touch on the waste disposal, essentially what we have done is allowed for vacation rentals to comply with our Title 8 of Health and Safety waste disposal requirements, which is that when they have limited access to doorways or they have obstructions from landscape, they can store their containers adjacent to their dwellings rather than out of the public view. They still need to ensure that they do not place them out on the street for collection any earlier than 12 hours prior to the time such collection is scheduled. They also need to remove their receptacles 12 hours after such removal. Occupancy limits have been amended to what they were prior to the amendments in January of 2022. We have added chapter 5.44.045, there's an amendment there, hosting platform requirements. So our hosting platform requirements would now be required to comply with the following. They shall remove any listings for vacation rentals within 24 hours of city notification that that vacation rental permit is invalid, expired, or has been revoked. Additionally, they shall collect in lieu of vacation rental owners and remit to the city the applicable transient occupancy tax and tourism business improvement district tax. We have included a chapter for limitation on vacation rentals, and vacation rentals permits shall not exceed 4% of the total housing parcels containing completed developed housing units. In addition to that, they shall not be located within 500 feet from another vacation rental measured front door to front door. And if a vacation rental is within a homeowners association that prohibits vacation rentals, that permit shall be rejected and not issued. We've proposed amendments regarding pre-inspections and annual inspections of vacation rentals. Those amendments include for all vacation rentals that inspections be required both at a pre-inspection and an annual inspection of the entire structure and the exterior premises, and that they are to ensure that vacation rentals will not create conditions material detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare, and that they are also going to include inspections related to noise monitoring systems, landscape, fire hazards, vehicle parking, maintenance of improved surfaces, visual blight, structural hazards, smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and occupancy. Additionally, all vacation rentals will be required to comply with the California Pool Safety Act, and in addition to that, any pool or spa must comply or be equipped with drowning prevention safety features. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So before we get to public comments, we have a subcommittee that's been working on this, so I'll let them add in anything they'd like to talk about. So Mr. Gardner, Mr. Nunez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a long, arduous process. We learned from our first round what worked, what didn't work, where we needed to make improvements. I think this is a very good, comprehensive piece of work. I really want to thank my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Nunez, who had, I don't want to steal his thunder, but had a lot of really smart ideas when it came to dealing with the cap and the distance requirements to protect our existing housing stock, which is, a concern for all of us and a particular concern of his. I'm very happy we were able to put in the additional pool regulations based on partly on a tragic event from earlier this year. But what's interesting about the pool regulation, I've had a lot of discussion with people who are concerned about it right now in their existing property, because the California Pool Safety Act does not apply to pools that were built prior to the act coming into effect. So they don't have to comply with these kind of things now unless there is a substantial, they're what we call non-compliant, permitted non-compliant. Our philosophy under this regulation is that by having a short-term vacation rental in there, you now are subject to having to comply with the California Pool Act, which I think is going to improve safety across the city in a number of ways. And it's not that difficult to comply with it. In my book. So there will be some additional things like that I think are really good. I think particularly the noise ordinance, which I know is a lot of concern for people, but the prior noise ordinance of no music at all, no sound at all, just was not workable, was not enforceable. There was really no way to go at it. And if you look at the things listed in 812.030 that are part of the noise ordinance, it gives our compliance staff a lot more tools to deal with noise and problems, and it's much more easy for them to enforce it. And so I think all over, I think we have a really good product in front of us. And I will tell you, making a little bit light of it, somebody who spent 30 years in public service, if we've managed to piss off I shouldn't say that, if we've managed to displease the short-term vacation rental owners, the platform hosts, and the residents in some fashion or another, it means we probably got it right, because not everybody is happy and not everybody got everything that they wanted. So I would encourage my colleagues here to adopt this. We do have to add one short clarifying amendment when we come to do that was left off inadvertently on the hosting platform requirements, but I'll wait and do that when we get down there.
Mr. Nunez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Gardner, because we went back and forth, and I think staff at some point had to tell us to calm down and cool down. So, but one thing he did leave out is, you know, this is no city ordinance against the short-term rentals is perfect, and we didn't want to be like any other city. And I don't want to mention cities, but some had cons, and some had, you know, that were really worked for them. They're really pro ordinances where they well balanced the short-term rentals and their ordinance to comply with regulations. What I have to say is that this document can always be changed, and it's going to take time for us to get it right. It's going to take time for us to test the waters with code enforcement, with law enforcement, with the platforms that are renting out their houses illegally. So just be patient and know that we're here, we're watching it, and we're going to be reviewing this closely. So if changes need to be made, we can always come back. So with that, I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say. Thank you.
We're going to open up to public comment first. I just want to notice for the start over again. Our city clerk, Mr. Suriano, received multiple correspondence from pros and cons of individuals that I want to show that we're printed and put on our dais. Myself, and I'm assuming the rest of the council, also received multiple emails that we were sent by people in favor and against this. So I wanted to notice that. The way the public comments work, this is an administrative item. You may come up, you state your name. Your 3 minutes will begin. When you do speak, the 3-minute timer is up there. Once the 3-minute timer ends, we ask you to step away for the next speaker. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andre Richard. I already hate to be here just to share my frustration over and over again about this vacation rental noise, which seems not to matter enough to our council members, as they are responsible for taking away our peaceful dwelling within this continuation. And can you imagine, next door hotel, as I call it, was just sold and relisted on Airbnb. The house was sold for $625,000. This is almost 50% of my house value. Since the house was known as a moneymaker, that proves to me that vacation rentals make our housing unaffordable. And just to give you an idea how hostile these hotel owners are, they're always nice and also offer you to contact them in case the guests cause an issue. As my wife did so last Saturday, but she got a response from the owner to stop harassing or actions will be taken. I take that as a threat. Right after that, on that Saturday, we called code enforcement, but no one showed up. Yesterday, I come home from work instead and have a city note on my door, a courtesy warning for a vacation rental and noise activity on my property. Really? I got angry about this. Is this how code enforcement works? The city embarrassed itself over these vacation rental enforcements, and it seemed like to have not learned from it. I called this morning your code enforcement department and talked to the warning issuer. Her initials are LH. She admitted a certain confusion and that nothing was investigated. She didn't even know that under the current city ordinance, no noise is allowed to leave the vacation rental fence line at any given time. How can code enforcement do that job without knowing the code? And again, did code enforcement not learn from the past? Now the city wants to streamline in your point 3 the noise ordinance, but as I and many others people in the room said during the last council meeting, the reality is that vacation rentals can enjoy even more freedom, noise, occupancy, and so on. And then the city wants to enforce that one without even being able to enforce the current ordinance. That's a joke. For who you actually work for? For us residents and voters who already complain over the situation in the dozens? Or do you represent and work for the investors out of town who keep writing you in support of this business type? If you would cause so much issues over one topic within the private business sector, you would have lost your job already. You instead keep holding on to an aggravating business which was for good reasons already banned in other desert cities, knowing the trouble will never end. More people consider moving away from that for that reason, but you don't seem to stop until you have a ghost town with unaffordable investor-owned houses in an unattractive city with a high crime where vacation renters daily drive out of town anyways. If you keep allowing that, it would be very shameful. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please. I can't stop you from clapping, but in public hearings, they do ask that you don't do that so either side feels comfortable enough to at least make their comments. So we ask that you give that courtesy to everybody. We ask, please.
Hi, Ken Anderson again. I just wanted to say that I am not against short-term rentals, but I feel that loosening the restrictions is not a good idea. Behind my house right now, I have a bunch of new homes. I know at least one, probably two, and maybe even three are going to be short-term rentals. I'm not looking forward to it. I like the 500-foot distance, but I would like to see it made as a radius, not maybe a lineal door-to-door, because that would allow someone beside me and someone right behind me or just off to the side, both to have short-term rentals. If both of them have parties on the same night, I'm screwed. And I did not hear anything in this report about enforcement. It says it's going to make it easier. How? We can't get code enforcement to come out now. They're understaffed. Police? I work with the police. They don't have the manpower to come out on a noise violation. If that's probably the lowest thing that they have to worry about. We really need to make this stronger. I did not move to this city to live in a hotel area. I moved out here because I love it out here. It's quiet, it's nice. The people are friendly. The people who come into short-term rentals, not all, but most of them, don't care. This isn't their home. Try and find a parking place down Sylvanus Road between Desert View and Hacienda. During the weekend, you won't find anywhere to park. There's cars everywhere. They're parked on the driveway. They're parked on the sidewalk. They're parked all up and down the streets. This is not a good idea. Please reconsider some of these rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there. My name is Spencer Detliff. I've lived here, actually as of today, it's been on my 11-month anniversary of moving here. I sent you all some emails on Sunday specifically about my problem with items number 3 and 4, the noise and the occupancy. I live in a very specific area that has a lot of problems with this. I live in the DHS 41 development that is surrounded by short-term vacation rentals. I sent, just as an example of what I've had to deal with, I sent Councilman Gardner at the beginning of August an issue I had with someone that was renting the house immediately next to us. They were partying it up like crazy that day, as loud as we've heard it. When I called, because I had the actual name of the investment company that owns it, I knew I had the contact information. I called them, and apparently they told them who complained, because less than 20 minutes later, 2 of them end up on my door when I don't answer because I don't know them, and I know where they're from because I saw them in the backyard. They start cussing up a storm at my front door. I sent him the video, I sent him the audio that we recorded, and to his credit, he said he would get in contact with code compliance or the police. Unfortunately, I don't think that anything ever happened from that because no one came to my door, and we have cameras out front and no one went there either. So to echo everything the two came before me said, it's clear enforcement is going to be worth nothing if this is actually passed, at least any more than it's worth right now. Another thing that happened, well, actually multiple things that happened. It's not really a big deal anymore on that. Items 3 and 4 are going to make my life, for lack of a better phrase, living hell where I live. And if they are passed, not only will it make noise just run rampant, but then, because short-term vacation renter investment companies can't come in, they're not going to be able to buy a house if I tried to sell it. So in the end, even if I wanted to sell it, I'm probably not going to get any of the money I already paid for it. So please, I'm pleading, just change 3 and 4. I don't know how it's indefensible, considering the fact that all you have to do is send someone out there to shut them up. That's all I'm asking. The music, they can be loud and party. The music that just thumps its bass into my house drives me insane, and this is just going to make it 10 times worse. At the end of the day, I mean, I wasn't here for the last election because I just moved in here 11 months ago. I know you all have your own opinions, but ultimately you're also supposed to help us with ours. And this is just abysmal if this actually goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Hi there. I'm Mary Kate Stover, and I'm a homeowner and voter here in Desert Hot Springs, and I also volunteer on the Planning Commission, but I'm not here as a Planning Commissioner, just as a neighbor and voter. But I do have great concerns about short-term vacation rentals and their effect on housing and long-term housing in Desert Hot Springs. Short-term vacation rentals do not count as housing units in the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, according to the HCD. They do not provide long-term housing or permanent housing, so they don't count. But I know that already, at least in one instance, they're being counted in our numbers in regards to DHS 41 specifically, where 5 of the 41 housing units are permanent housing and 36 are short-term vacation rentals. And that's 88% of that housing development has turned into short-term vacation rentals. So any of these neighbors who live here year-round and live in that area are dealing with that kind of volume of vacation rentals. It's just not right. They also negatively affect the affordability of housing. And when we're looking at creating jobs here in Desert Hot Springs, vacation rentals will create jobs for people such as house cleaners. A house cleaning job is generally a 20-hour-a-week, 10 to 20-hour-a-week job at $22 an hour. Which if they work for the whole, 20 hours a week for the whole year, that's $22,000 a year, which would allow them a rental budget of about $611 per month. And having looked on Zillow, there are 0 units in Desert Hot Springs at that price. Likewise with the Amazon jobs that we're looking at bringing in, which would pay the substandard wage of $18 an hour. That would make it $36,000 a year, and that would give that person a budget of $1,000 a month towards rental, which we only have 3 units that are under that in Desert Hot Springs. Our median income, our median household income is $44,000 a year in a household of 3.5 people. That would make their rental budget $1,200, and there are only 12 units.
That's your 3 minutes.
Thank you for your time.
We did receive correspondence to an email from you. Next speaker, please.
My turn. Brian Muse, good evening, Council and city staff. Just had a few questions. One, I don't know, one, the whole monitoring, noise monitoring system. Well, it sounds like that's going to go out the door by talking to a couple of people. So what's the purpose of having it? Two, what MK was just saying about my area is saturated, which I've told several of you guys already. Is there a way to do a moratorium on, like, for my area? We don't need any more vacation Airbnbs in my area, on my streets. And also what Mr. Anderson was saying about the 500 radius, door to door, that won't solve my problem. As soon as the guy sells the house next to me, he can obviously apply and he's okay. So maybe really looking at that, and maybe just doing a moratorium on 3 and 4 until we can really put something into place. But there's, again, the noise monitor things has to do something. It's only going to alert the residents. I'm still going to be probably calling the owners and go, can you turn it down? And then I just have a feeling if I do that, we might see some recourse with them where, it's like, hey, I don't have to anymore. Because, again, I do think, not being able to have music and TVs and all that, that's ridiculous. We all want to have a good time. All of us use Airbnbs, but there's just got to be something change. And I think to change 3 and 4 completely. And the last thing is, how is this going to make it easier for Christina and her staff to enforce? Because again, I've told a few of our staff here that I have a particular person on one street. We've been out there, the PD has been out there several times, more than 13, 14 times, and nothing, no sights. So, I mean, my band is for hire, Desert Crows, if you guys want me to go and set up at each person's house and we'll play outside and I'm just kidding, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think we need to really look at the whole residential noise ordinance, not just STVRs, right? I mean, we all want to enjoy peace, music, and have our own things, but maybe try a moratorium on 3 and 4 and really look at some of these things before we pass those. The other ones look great. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Roy. Next speaker, please.
Hi there, my name is Greg Morales. My partner and I live in the DHS 41 area. Just a couple of things I wanted to touch on that kind of were brought to my attention with some of the more expanded slides versus what we had last time. As far as the noise concerns, and one thing that we've talked with Councilman Gardner about is that the implementation of not allowing vacation rentals within 500 feet door to door, is great in theory, but like we said, 88% of the houses in our development are already vacation rentals. So that's not going to help us now. So what is the plan for mitigating the noise if we're going to allow loosen the restrictions on noise on these vacation rentals? What is the plan for the ones that are already there, taking up 88% of our community? Like we were talking about, we want to be able to have a party. If we had neighbors next to us that were actually living there, it'd say, hey, we're having a party this weekend. It might be a little noisy. But right now, it's every 3 or 4 days, there's new people in the house next door to us, behind us, catty corner to us, all having parties. So I'm sure a lot of the hot spots that you're getting for complaints are probably coming from us because we're surrounded by them. So I just am frustrated because you have these things and you're saying be patient, but we moved to this city because of how beautiful and how quiet and peaceful it was, not knowing that 88% of the houses around us were going to be party houses. The other thing that I think we had talked about was as far as limiting these giant corporations coming in and buying up all of these houses and then turning around and making them vacation rentals. It would probably be a good idea as well to implement some sort of limit on the amount of vacation rentals an entity can have within the city, so that it can be more of a small family practice type of thing, a small family business. one person has, 1 or 2 vacation rentals here, not some huge corporation buying 20 houses and turning around and making them all vacation rentals. So, yeah, I think that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Violetta. I own a vacation rental on Sylvanus, and I'm not good at public speaking, but I'm going to do my best. Regarding neighbors, we've had a lot of complaints in the summer months. City coordinates have been out there, and even the city coordinates officers stand there with me and looking at the street, and they're amazed why people are calling to complain, because there's zero noise. And what they complain to us is saying that even a child is speaking in the backyard, they will call and complain. And they will come there and say that they're not being cited, the houses have not been cited, because all of those accusations, I'm not gonna complain, I'm not gonna say all, but most of the accusations have been false. If somebody's on the phone in the backyard, they will call and complain. I had an incident with with my house where the people just checked in. 20 minutes later, city coordinates was there. People just checked in. They were just going into the house. They were not making, it was 4 people, mom, dad, and 2 kids. It was not a big group. It was not a family. It's just that whenever they see a car, they see people, the house is rented, we follow all instructions. We're on our phones the whole time, trying to make sure the noise level is low. There's no trouble. But our street, Sylvania Street, if you just drive by on the weekend, you're going to see there's no noise. People are so respectful. They follow all the orders. We owners follow orders. And talking about community and neighbors, we are neighbors. We have a chat text group with all the neighbors, and we talk to each other. When are you going to be in town? Are you going to be in town this day? Let's have a barbecue. We always do it. So we rent out our properties, but we're also there every other weekend or every weekend. Sometimes I'm there with my family, enjoying my house. Sometimes I have it on, short-term rentals, but I enjoy it as well with my kids. My kids go there with their friends, and we feel that the rights that other people have, we are being violated because I'm an owner and I'm paying the same taxes. I can't enjoy my house because every small thing that I do, somebody who's living there 24/7 complains that I don't have that same right, even when me or my kids are there. So every small thing that they hear, they will call and complain, which is not fair to us either. People go to rent out these houses to have a little family fun. Now, I'm not saying going extra, making too much loud power parties or noise, but just being considerate of us as well, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Dave Crowther, good evening. Our city could be #1 in the valley for hospitality, tourism revenue, and friendliness. Instead, over the past 6 months to a year, guests of Desert Hot Springs have been treated with contempt. People physically showing up at their doors, scolding them because they were listening to a song on their cell phone, or their kids were having a fun time in a backyard pool. Normal, typical daytime noise. Getting yelled at for accidentally parking in the wrong place, feeling like they're being stalked and snooped on. Bookings are way down relative to a year ago, even though the economy in general is still relatively strong. I've had guests post public negative reviews regarding some of these issues, and word is spreading on social media that Desert Hot Springs is not a welcoming place. The pendulum has swung too far in favor of people who work at home for non-local companies that contribute little, if anything, to city coffers. In contrast, short-term vacation homes contribute a significant and growing portion of city revenue, and this will only continue to grow as more come into compliance with the appropriate transient taxes. The only thing stopping this from happening is overly restrictive rules that embolden residents to treat visitors poorly. At a minimum, I suggest that the rules be at least as accommodating to guests as the most accommodating place in the valley. We can be leaders in this regard. We need the noise, trash, occupancy rules to go back to how they were to remain competitive in the valley. Code is wasting too much time chasing false reports about guests that are just having a good, safe time. Actual problems of significance, which should receive a response from the city, are being drowned out by the hundreds of exaggerated ones. There's always room for improvement. I believe vacation homeowners can do better, but rest assured, Desert Hot Springs residents can do better as well. The city can do better. I come to voice my support for the proposed regulation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Amber Duff, resident. Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. First, I want to thank the committee and the staff for bringing forward the additional health and safety language and that will provide guidelines for pool safety. I do believe, and it is my hope, that this action is going to save lives. So thank you for that. I also applaud the addition of any language that has been included here to give the necessary tools to our staff to manage these new businesses in our city in an effective way and hold accountable these large companies like Airbnb and VRBO to assist them and reduce costs that our city incurs enforcing these businesses. The 500-foot rule is also a great addition. However, the measurement described in the current proposal is somewhat open to interpretation. Everyone is very familiar with the 500-foot radius of either property lines or of the center of the property. To have it say right-of-way when we have a lot of streets with no crosswalks and a lot of areas with dirt roads in what would be considered the right-of-way, it makes it a little bit confusing, and I think that you could eliminate problems in the future if you move that language to what's more familiar to everyone, like the 500-foot radius. The 4% cap for our city is also another great addition. However, I am concerned with it being by parcel and not unit. It is my understanding that our city's housing element reports and other affordable housing numbers are reported all by unit. I also have a concern regarding the affordable housing numbers that have already been reported. Has our staff and does our staff on a continual and regular basis update those reports to properly reflect and remove the STVRs that were previously on that list and counted on our housing elements? In regards to the proposed changes to occupancy, a resident had made this recommendation on July 5th. The state of California occupancy is 2 per bedroom plus 1. For a 5-bedroom house, that would be 11 guests overnight. If we're going to go above what the state already has said is their recommended occupancy, then shouldn't we have to perform new studies in regards to whether or not there are additional impacts to our community, our roads, our infrastructure, and our resources? And if they are 100% investor-owned homes, these are no longer resident impact fees. Shouldn't they be having to pay commercial impact fees, as their impact to our community is very different than the average resident that was initially in that study for that development? Lastly, in regards to enforcement on July 5th, a lot of the residents were made very upset by the report that 92% of our complaints were unfounded. It was very shocking for a lot of us, and I have to say, hurt our feelings. It hurt our feelings that the frustration that we live with on a daily basis is somehow being viewed as unfounded by the time they come. So we just ask that you arrive first.
That's your 3 minutes.
Look
Thank
first.
you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Tom Moen, 44-year resident, Desert Hot Springs. I know a lot of people in this city, and I know a lot of people who disappear during the hot summertime, and they rent their home out via short-term vacation rental so that the house is occupied and not just sitting empty, which is a good safety factor and value factor for people that own property. And I've lived in my same house for 37 years. And I've had more noise issues with neighbors that are there personally than with the Airbnb that's just 2 doors from our house. I haven't heard anything from that house, and that house has had quite a history. I can remember when our police department was brand new here, and I helped to put our police department in place. And we had a situation where cars would pull up to that house, enter the garage, be there about 10 minutes, and leave. And I suspected that there was drug sales going on, which made me very uncomfortable, and having small children at that time, I worried about their safety. What's going on? And I talked to the police chief at the time, and he says, well, it's going to be a hard time proving things, but I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll have the police cars park there and do their reports at night. And they have to park somewhere. They can park in front of that house. Well, you know, within 7 days, that house was vacated because people didn't want to pull in. Well, there was a police car parked in front. And I think we have a very cooperative city. And I think that there are a lot of effective ways to do things. And I know I worked some things out with another neighbor years ago when they had a rock band practicing in their garage that was quite disturbing and quite noisy. But I was able to work things out with the neighbors and get them to agree on times that weren't so bad. I think we have to look carefully. We have to be very careful. This 4% limit, that sounds minuscule to me, and that might need to be revisited. But my advice is live and let live, cooperate. When the trash needs to be taken out at the Airbnb that's by us, we take it out for them. I mean, let's be good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Good evening. My name is Lily, and I am the owner of the property that is located on Flora Street or Flora Avenue. I just want to do some addition to what Violet just told us. I'm not going to repeat what she said. Just in addition to that, as the owner, I received 2 citations for the noise. However, those citation was a false citation. After I went through the court, I paid the citation, and then I prove by the videos and stuff that those citations was dismissed at the end. So as the owners, we are trying to do our best to get, try to control the noise and be respectful to all our neighbors here. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight. Anyone else like to speak?
Very good at this either. My name is Deborah Haas, and I'm a short-term rental owner on Avenida Alta Loma. Thank you for having us. I just wanted to let you know, I think that there's a lot of people that have complaints and stuff, but I don't think you're hearing about, maybe our neighborhood where there are no complaints. I've not had one complaint. I'm very, I love my neighbors. I have them over every time I'm in town. I use it as also a vacation for us and my family. My father and I bought it. We don't have the money. We could not afford to have a vacation house, but this is a way for us to be able to do it and all get together yearly and maybe sometimes twice a year. This year only once a year, unfortunately, with some health issues. But we wouldn't be able to do it without actually having short-term as well. So I know that I don't believe that vacation home rentals should be only for the rich. I believe there should be able to, and we are a good short-term rental host. I have noise sensor outside, noise sensor inside. I have a Echo as well, and I have a Ring. I have the pool monitor now, which is great. I love that because we do not want any problems with a child's death. So that is, we are complying in every way. I've just renewed my my rental, and we look forward to it. One other thing I want to tell you is that I think there's some misunderstanding that all these rentals are making a lot of money. We actually we've had it for 2 years, and we've been in the hole every year. So now with the rising cost and stuff, my father's actually wanting to maybe reconsider the area, unfortunately, because it's getting too expensive too. So I don't want that to happen for you guys as well, because I do believe that, you know, you need this here. You need this Desert Hot Springs to thrive. You need more restaurants. You need more, you know, amazing places to go to for entertainment. Palm Springs can't just have it all. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next comment, please. Next comment, please. I see nobody else coming forward to final call for public comments. All right, I'm going to close public comments. I'm going to let the subcommittee answer maybe some of those questions that were brought up. I have a list of questions. I know Ms. Pye's in the queue, and we'll move down the line. But I'll start with Mr. Gardner and Mr. Nunez.
Thank you, and thank you everybody who showed up on both sides. We hear you, trust me, we hear you, and I have a great deal of sympathy for the folks that live in DH 41. To have 80%, 88% of the houses in a brand new development become short-term vacation rentals was something that I don't think any of us ever would have expected, and had we had any idea that would have happened, we would have probably put in a cap or some sort of restriction long before that. That being said, if I could snap my fingers and make most of them, those in DHS 41, go away and we'd have instant compliance with 500 feet and everything else, I would. We can't. Even if we were to institute a total outright ban on STVRs in the city, which none of us, I think, want, all of those operating ones would still be allowed to continue to operate for at least the length of their permit, up to a year. So they're not going to go away. We could overnight this and ban everything. They're still going to be there for a year. What we have instituted here is combining with the declining market. As she mentioned, a lot of people jumped into the STVR market thinking they were going to make a killing, and they're not. And we're seeing drastic reductions in every city in the valley on short-term vacation rentals. People's not renewing their permits, people selling their houses. I think what happened in DHS 41, and I'm just going to speculate, is that the houses weren't selling, so the developer just put them all in a bucket and made them all short-term vacation rentals, hoping they'll, or until they sell. The way we have this drafted now, let's assume one of those short-term vacation rentals that is owned by the group were to sell as a short-term vacation rental. Under this ordinance, the permit is not transferable, and the 500-foot rule kicks in. So when that house sells, it will not become another short-term vacation rental. It can't. It physically can't do it. But it's going to have to take for that house to sell in order for that to happen. And that's not going to happen overnight. And I'm sorry for that. I wish there was a way to fix that, but honestly, there really isn't that we can do that. As far as, I keep hearing loosening the regulations, and I'm really concerned about it because we're going from where it said you can't have any noise at all to a list of 13 things that can make up a noise ordinance. All kinds of things that were not in the original ordinance that we couldn't enforce. This gives our code compliance staff the teeth that they need to be able to enforce that. So I can't see going from no noise to a list of 13 things as loosening in any way. The monitors are still required, even though residents themselves don't have to have monitors for their own property, and that's to alert the owner if things start to get a little bit noisy, and they can call and turn it down before the owner or before the neighbor has to call code compliance or call the owner themselves. So that's why we still have the monitor in there. It's still there. I have STVR owners calling and say, well, if we're going to do that, why do we still have to have a monitor? I said, because it'll alert you as things start to get a little bit noisy in there before the neighbor has to call and complain. So a couple of other things that I jotted down here. like I said, the biggest factors we have and the biggest problematic area we have in the city is, unfortunately, DHS 41, which is literally a block or two from my house as well. It is a problem, and short of, they have a due process right as well. We can't just pull every permit from that area, so it's going to take some time for that to work out, and I think this is the best way to work that out. Now, we have a shortage of hotel rooms in our city, a drastic shortage of hotel rooms in our city. Revitalizing our spas using the program that we've put in place to help revitalize spas is working. We're seeing new spas come on board. We had Onsen reopened up. We've got people working in a couple of other properties right now that'll be opening up, and we're doing everything we can to encourage that. We will still have a market for short-term vacation rentals, but I think that the market itself is working hard to solve the oversaturation issue, and will eventually. As far as the radius piece that came up, the radius is a little bit problematic as opposed to a 500 feet door to door. And let me use an example of over near DHS 41, the Eagle Crest neighborhood across the street from the high school. If you were to do a 500-foot radius from a house in there, you're going to overlap all the way over into the neighborhood on the other side of Pearson, which is kind of a natural dividing line, but a 500-foot radius, a home over on the south side of Pearson as an STVR would not be allowed because somebody a block away on the north side of Pearson does. So Mr. Nunez and I, when we were working on this, came up with the 500-foot door-to-door because that solves that problem. Now, is it perfect? No, as he said as well. It is a work in progress. Everything is a work in progress. The first round we thought was pretty good. We realized there were a lot of missing holes in it. We've kind of plugged those now with this. We'll give this one a shot, and the things that aren't working in it, we'll revisit it and go back from there. So, again, I would encourage my colleagues to adopt this, and anybody has any questions, we'll see what we can do to answer them between Christina and Mr. Nunez and myself.
Mr. Nunez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Gardner. And you answered the question that I was going to bring up about the 500 feet radius versus the 500 feet door to door. But I was going to leave it up to staff to answer any of the questions that they might have heard that they needed to answer.
So our Community Development Director, Travis Clark, has been hanging out for one particular answer, so I want to go to him first, and then we'll ask Christina to respond to the rest. Travis, can you please provide some clarification on the comments with respect to RENA and short-term vacation rental permits?
Sure. So what we are required to do each year is to report on new residential units being built in the city. You'll recall we usually do this March each year. It's the annual housing development progress report. The state asked us for the numbers of entitlements permitted in final housing. The state does not ask us which one of these are short-term rentals. That's not in the requirements. They are.
Travis, I'm very sorry, but we're having a very difficult time hearing you. Is there any way you can come into the council chambers and I can have Christina start with her questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Before she does that, I had one more that I realized I had on my note here. When Mr. Muse brought up the concern he has, and I've chatted with him about it, where you called 18, 19, 20 times on an individual house. And they may have gone out, they may have not issued a citation, they may have asked them to turn it down, and they did, and therefore a citation may not be warranted, but it still is problematic. And I know you've got it on speed dial, and I know it's a pain in the you-know-what to have to call every time. One of the things we're adding to this that'll give some additional teeth to our code compliance people and our licensing people is located towards the back, but they will be allowed to revoke a vacation rental permit if in any way it is detrimental to the public interest or is a public nuisance. So you're tracking that, police is tracking that. When it comes time for them to renew that, they'll look and see, hey, 25 calls, that's a public nuisance. And then Christina and her staff will be able to make a determination at that point whether that warrants or not a revocation of their permit. So I wanted to get that piece in there. So,
Mr. Clark?
thank you.
Sorry, your audio was in and out.
That's all right. Yeah, so what we're required to report to the state each year in our annual housing element progress report is the number of new residential units that are in the process. So that's whether they made an application for entitlements, permitted or final. The report does not ask us which ones are slated for short-term vacation rentals. It's just flat out housing units. It does ask which ones are low, moderate, and higher incomes. And the way we report on that is if it's deed restricted as low income, then that gets counted as low income housing. All the others that are being built are counted as moderate or high income housing.
Ms. Newsom?
So first and foremost, I wanted to address Mr. Andre's comment from earlier. I did want to publicly apologize to him because there was an error in the dissemination of the actual complaint over the weekend, which is why no one responded, because it actually didn't go to any of our vacation rental officers over the weekend. So we've corrected that. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that that's not the normal. We always respond to any complaint that's filed. Aside from that, we take enforcement very seriously. We take all of your complaints very seriously. I've reached out to many of you here tonight that have spoke out. I've given you my personal phone numbers. I've had you call me anytime you hear something. I've, reached out to staff over the weekend to address your complaints. And so I just want to let you know that we hear you and we value, obviously, your peace and enjoyment and your sense of community. Aside from that, we've heard a lot tonight about the fact that we're loosening regulations, and I would argue that we're actually doing the opposite here. There are some loopholes in the ordinance as it exists today, and that's with respect to being able to deny permits, suspend permits, revoke permits. And so what we're doing here is we are adding regulation that will allow for those things in the future, because as it sits currently, when we're receiving your complaints and those complaints don't result in administrative citation because it's not allowed for in the ordinance, we can't then move forward with suspension, with revocation. We cannot deny permits based on some of these factors because they simply don't exist. And when we have regulations that are wrote in a way that are indefensible, you heard somebody speak earlier that we've had to dismiss citations. That's the reason for the dismissal, because unfortunately we're not going to win in those appeals. And so everything that we bring forward is with respect to, listening to your complaints, working with all of you who have been reporting parties, and also just realizing that with respect to permit issuance, permit revocation, we don't have the teeth currently that's required to move forward in a way that would promote, safety, health, enjoyment of property. So that's the majority of kind of what I wanted to update you on. Also, these noise complaints, these noise disturbances, these are the factors that we need to rely on. It actually broadens our ability to issue citations and identify noise disturbances, rather than just rely on the fact that, hey, we're going to assume that someone, in the backyard, in the pool is a noise disturbance. That's not defensible. We may not even have video, audio. We may not be able to speak to the intensity of the noise and things like that. So this is all to promote enforcement and regulation.
Thank you for those clarifications. Ms. Powell, you're next in the queue.
Guests, how many guests can be day or night? There was a question on that.
You're asking me that? You're looking at me.
I'm asking you or Mayor Pro Tem.
We did update the table on that, and it is somewhat confusing because the strike through on the number 4 is right on the tail of the 4. So in some cases it looks like there's 42 when it's actually not. But they're each, depending on the number of bedrooms, the occupancy goes up or goes down based on where where it falls in there, but that table is located at subparagraph F. I don't need to read the whole table, but we did adjust that to reflect what is allowed under state law.
Another question. If a person has several violations, and you said they would have to wait 2 a year, but if they have serious violations, would we have to wait for a year?
No, we still have the immediate revocation of 2 serious violations.
Okay. And one question that wasn't asked, I was asked to request this. The Getaway and other boutique hotels are only using Airbnb and similar vacation rental platforms to increase room occupancy. Because of current regulations, we are all confronted with the same problem. Stop marketing on these digital platforms and have lower occupancy or pay exorbitant increased fees that could easily put us out of business. This wasn't put into the regulation. The question is why?
We took a serious hard look at that, Mr. Nunez, staff, and I, when we were discussing that, whether or not, for instance, an older spa that has 4, 5, 6 rooms, whether they should have to pay you'd have to get a license for every single room, or they can get a license for the overall property. We felt that the best way to handle that was to keep it at each individual room. They are operating a business. They have the choice of applying to the city for a conditional use permit for a hotel, which would take that out of the equation. So they have the choice. They can either go with the short-term vacation rental platform and have a license for each room, or they can scrap that and get a CUP from the city and operate it as a hotel. But merging the two, I didn't think worked well. So,
Mr. Betts? I gotta tell you, it's really tough to sit here and listen to some of this because so much to cover and so much that's wrong. What I hear coming from the subcommittee and then what I read here in front of me is just like worlds apart. Maybe it's a typo on item 3. It says realign regulations for vacation rentals for noise, trash cans, and parking. Was that word realign supposed to be relax? Is it going to relax the regulations for vacation rentals for noise, trash cans, and parking? Because that's what's happening here. That's what this says is being done. And these are what the concerns are for the residents who have come forward. Now I go down to item 4, and it says modify the occupancy regulations for vacation rentals. And again, I think somebody picked the wrong word. You're not modifying them, you're increasing them. You're increasing the number of guests that can stay in a house up to, Mr. Gardner, can you tell me what is the maximum number of people that could be in a house? Do you have that handy? Does anybody have that handy?
In a 5-bedroom house, the total number of, in a 5-bedroom house, the total number of overnight occupants would be 12.
Can I see that?
It's right there.
Oh, I got it. I just don't have it handy. I'm seeing 18.
That's in addition to daytime guests.
Okay, so daytime.
Overnight.
All right, so the maximum is 18, daytime and occupancy. You know, I've had people over to my house, and I got 18 people in that house. I got a challenge finding a place for them all to sit, where I'm going to put them. My living room's stuffed full. They're going to be flowing outside, okay? So increasing that is not making the regulations tougher. Let's be honest here. That is loosening the regulations. You are allowing the Airbnbs to have more people in their properties. I'm looking here into the discussion, and it says the City Council Subcommittee and staff met with vacation rental property owners. Did you reach out to any of the residents? I mean, you formulated this with the help of the vacation rental owners, but I don't see you writing here that we also had meetings with the residents who are having these problems. And I want to say to the vacation rental owners, these are not unfounded complaints, okay? You don't live next door to one of these things, and there's the problem. Now, I want to get on to a couple other issues because I think the public has accurately and fairly and honestly represented the frustrations that they have with these vacation rentals moving into their neighborhoods and turning quiet neighborhoods into hotel party zones. Now, not every vacation rental owner is that way. I lived next to one that was very responsible and it wasn't a problem. But I've had the recordings sent to me, and I don't know how our staff, our enforcement can't go hear what has been sent to me on these recordings. Maybe I'll play it, but you can go find it. I got a couple of questions for staff, and I'm going to get into my last point here because I don't want to go on too long because I already know the way the vote's going to go on this one. At the Public Safety Commission meeting, one of the commissioners who happens to live in the Mountain View development raised a concern about a vacation rental in their HOA, the Mountain View HOA. And the response from code staff was, well, we allow those, and so you'll just have to go and your HOAs have to file a lawsuit. Now, I don't know if that was the position of the city. I contacted the city manager, asked him to look into that. But I'm happy to see now that you're excluding the HOAs. And Mr. Mayor, that'll make you happy. You don't have to deal with this noise in your HOA. But my question is, we have 2 vacation rentals who have been issued permits in Mountain View. Is it still up to that HOA now to have to go and file court action, or will those permits be revoked? Or do we even issue those permits? I guess would be the first question.
I don't know offhand which 2 permits you're referring to, but if the permits have already been issued, then we would probably have to wait for the renewal to deny a permit based off of this, because what the ordinance has been revised to is that if you apply as a new applicant and you are in an HOA that prohibits, your application would be rejected. But that would also apply to the process of denial during an annual renewal.
Okay, so that community of Mountain View, which from I've heard from very much does not want anymore, celebrating that this new regulation that they won't be there, but apparently their HOA now is going to have to go and take court action because they're not allowed. And any other city, I think, when you go to do something, the city complies with the regulations of the HOA. I think we made a mistake in issuing those. Mr. Gardner, I heard you say DHS 41 is the only problem. And I got it, at 88%, that's just incredible. But I got to think, you got people in Sunset Springs, Rolling Hills, Hacienda Heights, Rancho Del Oro, and more that are probably screaming at their TV as you said that, thinking, I got this noise next to me all the time. On the RENA, I've followed that real closely over the years. And if we have houses that go into from newly built and they're recorded and meet our RENA numbers, but they are never occupied as a single-family residence and go straight into commercial use, I question whether or not we can legitimately include those numbers in our RENA calculations. If they go into homes that are used and then later sold and transfer, and that was the position of San Bernardino County when I went up to a meeting up there, that was their position, is if they're immediately built as a vacation rental, they don't count towards RENA. But if they transfer over and are in an occupancy of a single family home and a residence, then they can. That gets to be a bit technical for everybody here in the audience. Talking about what I'm hearing and what I'm reading, what I heard was we can revoke if it's a public nuisance. But everything that's defined as a public nuisance has been eliminated. What are we fining for? And you're really telling me 25 calls? If we got somebody who's got 25 calls, that's what you said, Gary. We got 25 calls? Somebody's supposed to endure 25 calls? All right. Other question. We have an issue with boutique spa hotels that are very important to this community. And because of the dynamics of Airbnb, a lot of them have taken up the platform of Airbnb to advertise, even though it's not their regular core business. They're licensed, their CUP says they're a hotel, but now they're having to pay a per unit charge. And I would love to see, in support of the boutique spa hotels and the hoteliers in this community, we have the ability to do it, we have the authority to do it, rather than relying on a per unit for these bona fide hotels, is to allow them to do it a per property fee rather than per unit. You've got somebody who is now facing, if they have 10 rooms, they have to worry about coming up with $12,000, and they have to weigh $12,000 worth of expenditure to be able to market for Airbnb, and they're already having a tough time competing with the vacation rentals, and here they are trying to use the same platform that's attracting visitors to the city, and then they're having to pay a whole lot more money. So I really think, and we all got a letter on that, and if that comes up at another meeting where we address that, if you guys want to take some more time, I would be ready to exempt from the fee any boutique spa hotels in the city, because they're fighting for business every day. I talk to them, they say, you know, same as the vacation rental owners, it's a tough business out there and they work really hard, but $12,000 for one property isn't right. Now, I'm not going to go on much longer. I'm going to just say I went up to a meeting put on by San Bernardino County up in 29 Palms, and there were 150 people in attendance, all of them with the same, pretty much the same comments as were here, overwhelmingly against vacation rentals. There wasn't anybody there that had a vacation rental that was there. But they made a point at the beginning of the meeting to say, listen, this isn't about code issues or your complaints about noise or parking or trash or anything like that. That's not what this meeting is about. They said the meeting was, is anybody here having trouble finding a rental property because it's been taken over by an Airbnb? Has anybody been kicked out of a rental because somebody converted it to an Airbnb? Is anybody having a tougher time buying a home because the home you were going to buy is now, as an example, was provided $650,000 instead of $400,000? And that was an entire meeting. It was a 2-hour meeting, well attended, and that was the focus of the meeting. And I want to put that in real terms here. I live in a development that's been overrun with vacation rentals, and we were really looking forward to getting finished out. And I got a grandson, 14 at the time, and he says, Grandpa, do you think anybody is going to move into these new homes that are being built that would be, somebody that I could go out and hang out with, a friend in the neighborhood? And I said, no, they all become vacation rentals. I mean, that's the reality, okay? We're destroying neighborhoods. And it's, you could sit there and say the almighty dollar coming into City Hall is all that counts, but that's not all that counts. And people sit there and say the price of my house will go up because of the vacation rentals. The value of my house goes down when I got constant loud partying and disturbance. I would like to see us make some changes to this, removing items 2, 3, and 4, and to leave them as they are. I won't get that. I'm not even going to make the motion and waste my time. I'll let one of you make the motion if you want to listen to the residents who have taken the time to come here. I would like to see somebody, whoever makes the motion, to do something in support of our vacation or boutique spa hotels. And I'm not repeating myself, Mr. Mayor, sorry, I'm just wrapping up here. I'm done. I'm tired. This is a very difficult issue to look at, but make no mistake, please, the 4% cap is a good thing. No more than 500 feet. I agree with the radius. I originally had it in way back when we did this, I came up with no more than 5% in a subdivision, or 1,000 foot. And those are good things. And the regulations on pool and stuff, good job, staff. But on this other stuff that makes it worse, on the major impacts to this city, what we've done is there's no way that anybody can, with a straight face, say that we have made these regulations more tough and be surprised when somebody says that this has been relaxed. I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to take my turn, then I'll go around again if we need to. First, to answer the questions on the HOA. Yes, I do live in an HOA. Thanks for identifying that. I don't know if that was a dig or anything, but there's a lot of people in our community that live in HOAs. There's big HOAs, there's small HOAs, there's townhouse HOAs. Area 41 that could band together and become an HOA if they chose to. And in the future, it's legally kind of a lot to do, but it's always easier if the developer does it at the beginning. But what I would suggest reading this is that HOAs are ruled, I'm going to be lack of words, I'm getting tired and my head hurts, but they have CCNRs that oversee their communities. And there are some CCNRs that allow for vacation rentals in some HOAs, and there's some CCNRs that do not allow. People that are, I do manage HOAs, and I have a couple HOAs that are going through this process right now. They're having the same difficulties we are, that they had a bunch of STVRs pop up, and they can't, by law, regulate them to stop or move out. They can going forward, but they can't go backwards. So what I would suggest in the application process of our permitting of this is that there's a box on there that asks if they're living in an HOA, and if they do, they have to provide the CCNRs. That would then permit our city from stopping any permitting for that HOA. If it's automatically in their CCNRs, they can't do it. So I think that would be a good suggestion for the application, to have a box on there that would prompt our staff to check for those. Because there are a lot of HOAs in our community. Might not seem like it sometimes, but there are. I had quite a few questions pop up. I got quite a few answered. I would be more in favor of the radius rather than door to door. I do see that argument, and I want you to know there's you know, I've tried to be as fair as possible. Being an elected individual from our community, I have a vested interest in our community also. So I listen to both sides. I've listened to the the owners. I've listened to the property that are affected. And I do see there's hot spots. I do. I mean, I've talked to people in Area 41. I've talked to people not far from my community that have hot spots, and I think there's ways that we can massage this ordinance to really work for the betterment of our community. We are being reactive. In a sense, COVID hurt a lot of our communities because these businesses started to pop up a lot. And we're being reactive, so to try to be more proactive, I think us as a council, we have been. Our subcommittee, I would make a recommendation to them that they do come back and give us progress report in 6 months on how this ordinance is going, whatever form it takes tonight, and that we do reach out to these communities of hotspots and bring those individuals in to try to help with their issues. I do like the changing of the time for this, because it does allow our code enforcement 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. It's a lot more time than the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. where it was 8 a.m. something like that. But it's more regulation on the noise, so that's going to help out. What I do see us needing to do is publish that better. I see that was a little confusing. So we got to remember we're all human, even our administrators. As much as we think they're super people, they are human, and sometimes they don't get every detail in there. But the questions are asked, and we're giving you answers to those. I do think we have more teeth in the noise monitoring here, and I think that needs to be published better. And I think, I'm not sure if this is written in there. You might be able to answer this, either you or you or you. When I go to Big Bear, I stay in STVRs, but it's very restricted. As soon as you walk through the door, it's written out on what your rules are. It has to be posted there. There was a company that made us check a list saying they got a copy of it. I'm not sure if that in our current ordinance. Might be something that if we could amend tonight to put some sort of written notice. It's very simple to have it printed out, put them there, and just when they sign in, they've checked that they've read those rules and ordinances, the major ones. I mean, time, noise, those types of things. I think will be important. Everybody's always looking for the Wi-Fi code, so you put the Wi-Fi code really low at the bottom of that, so they have to read the whole thing to find it. And I do want to reiterate, I think this is an opportunity, especially in Area 41, is this home sold, they won't be able to be relicensed, so that'll be important for you. And I do think the developer looked for an opportunity to sell homes and found that loophole at that time. And that's unfortunate, it really is. We have a noise issue in our community, period. It's not just STVRs, it's residents that don't adhere to it, and we need to do a better job. How do we do that is the question. I'm not saying we're not doing the job, I'm just saying how do we do it better? And maybe that's outreach we need to do and figure that out. I have a resident that calls me on a regular basis, and it's not an STVR, it's a residential neighborhood that they just like to party. And I don't know, we can probably pull the logs from our police on how many times dispatch gets a call for it, but it's a nuisance. And how do we educate? During COVID, we had a terrible firework problem. It's still somewhat of a problem, but especially during COVID. And it's education, and it's really trying to get out there and figure this out. So I do agree that we need to do more on our noise, not just for STVRs, but in general. Sorry. We do have good players, and we, like I said, when I go to Big Bear, it's very restrictive, and we'll have knocks on the door if we were being too loud. And I hear the business owners that are here today to plea that they are trying to be good players, and even talk to someone that's today on the phone who's very outspoken about the fact that their neighborhood is very impacted, but they said they have a good one in their neighborhood. They just wish the rest would be like that. And so how do we balance that is the question. So how do we get there? Because I think a lot of you do see the benefits in just under $1 million in TOT revenue from the STVRs, and I'm sure that will fluctuate over time and as time goes on. The state occupancy, I had a note on that, but you stated overnight guests are exactly the same as residential guests. It's just you allow for a few more guests in the daytime. I don't have a serious problem with that, and I know it can be a problem sometimes, but we just got to be able to monitor it, make sure that even though you're allowed in Big Bear, and I keep using Big Bear because that's where my family goes quite a bit, so I apologize, Big Bear, if you're watching. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying that even though we could have 10 guests in that home, and that was the occupancy, we could only have 3 cars. So that's, I think, the issue that a lot of these are having is that they take up their residential parking, and how do we monitor that? So how many vehicles can they have at these homes? I know that's in there. It's up to 3 or 4?
It's as many as designated spaces provide.
So if there's
a driveway, then reasonably 2. If there's a
does that
garage
include the
and
2?
driveway,
Okay.
then 4. Yeah.
Thank you. So it could be up to 4 vehicles if it's a 2-car garage. If it's an older home, meaning not older, but when Tom and I grew up here in the 70s, there's a house where there only could fit 1 car, would that mean 1 car in the garage and 2 in the driveway?
If there's only 1 that would reasonably fit in the driveway,
No, fit in the garage. So 1 vehicle into the garage and you could fit 2 in the driveway.
if
that
you
would
have
mean
a
you're going-
designated space like a driveway or parking strips, then those would be designated spaces. Any other vehicle would have to be parked on the street.
Can I get clarification on that, Mr. Mayor? Are you talking, does it mean no street parking?
No. If you can only have the number of cars parked in designated spaces overnight on the property, so we don't want people parking on lawns to accommodate for other guests. Anything beyond that number would have to park on the street.
Okay, they don't have to park in the driveway. 4 cars could park on the street. Okay, thank you.
I understand the concerns, and we're trying to talk this through, and we're trying to fix this, so I understand the frustrations here, and we're going to have that if you drive down the number of streets with ABC streets, you're going to find, because of the age of the community, and there's 4 residents in the house, 2 parents, 2 kids, whatever, 5 people rent a house, whatever it is, you're going to find this problem on those streets because there's not enough parking.
We did add additional regulations in there related to anyone that's parked on the street that's staying overnight in a vacation rental does need to comply with Title 4, which are public nuisance violations, and Title 10, which are parking standards. So anyone that's blocking a driveway, anything like that, will be cited.
So I would suggest, and maybe something to talk about, I'm not saying we have to do it tonight, but I would suggest in the future that maybe there's a tag or something that the business owners would provide, which is just a piece of paper. It says vacation park, whatever it is, red tag, something that's easily identified. Because what can happen, and I don't want this to happen, is I know the state is very restrictive on towing and how you can do that. So by the time the vacation rental comes in, it stays overnight or 2 nights, you have to give them 96 hours or something like that before you could even tow a vehicle. So, to identify them, to be able to cite them, I think we need to have a better program to understand that. I don't know exactly what that is, and I don't want to cause a lot of extra pain on this, but I think it's important because it does seem to be a problem. Just something for the subcommittee to think about. We don't have to solve it tonight. And then again, I asked at the subcommittee probably revisit this in 6 months, give a progress report of where we're at. I would suggest maybe meeting with some of the hotspot neighborhoods. Our new city manager is going to be really versed in this. He went through this, and no, I'm just joking. I'm not giving you a job already. But we do, again, it's a nuisance when you have a few bad players in some neighborhoods, and especially if you have a hotspot and you have multiple bad players in that neighborhood, because that neighborhood becomes very defensive. And so to balance that out, we have to figure that out. We really do. And so that's something I think is important. I'm looking at all my other scribble here. I think most of mine. So if I'm understanding the noise right now, with the noise, the teeth that you're putting into this is that you can identify noise with the monitors and or with the multiple actions in that ordinance, which is, there's a bunch of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the requirement for noise monitors did not go away. That is meant for property owners to mitigate the noise once they understand that it's reached over 70 decibels, so that code enforcement doesn't have to come out. And then if we are called out because they're not attending to it, then we use the noise factors or noise prohibited for sound reproduction between those hours in Title VIII.
And I was told in the past, if for a noise ordinance, that code would have to call the property owner and they would have to arrive within 30 minutes, and then you would have to hear the noise together for the citation. Can we change that to be if the code shows up and there's noise, they get cited?
So it wasn't that exactly. What it is that we had a requirement that provided that the property owner would need to physically respond to any complaint. And so what was happening is code enforcement was having to wait to verify that they physically responded to the complaint before they were actually, determining whether or not a violation existed. That has gone away. We've removed the respond physically for them to contact the occupant within 30 minutes. If we come out at minute 1 and there's a noise violation, we're going to issue a citation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Again, I would ask for a little bit of modification on the permit to add a box for HOA. Do you live in an HOA? If it's yes, then the next box would be, can you provide a copy of CCNRs?
We've actually reached out to other cities who currently do have some sort of ban with respect to HOAs, and they've provided some really good sort of process that they have in place to do that such thing.
I appreciate that. One of the communities I do manage is a large country club in another city in the Coachella Valley, but it has 23 HOAs within it. Some allow that and some don't. So if you hear from an HOA in our community, sometimes the HOAs are split within their HOA in multiple different HOAs. So it'd be important to get the CCNRs and read those and understand those before we did not permit them. That is all my comments. I know, Mr. Gardner, you had more.
Just a couple of quick other clarifications wanting to my colleague, Mr. Betts. First of all, I don't recall saying that DHS 41 was the only problem area. I said it was a significant problem area. Second of all, on the boutique spas, if you will, if they already have a CUP to operate as a hotel, and they also double list on a platform such as Airbnb or Vrbo, they're not having to get an STVR license on top of a hotel CUP. They have the choice. They can get a hotel CUP or they can get an STVR license. What we have right now are a couple of small apartment buildings where spas maybe back in the day that have chosen not to get a CUP for a hotel and chosen to get an STVR license, in which case they get an STVR license for each room that is part of that property.
Can I get clarification on that? We get clarification on that. You said if they can pick one or the other. So if they're listing their hotel rooms on Airbnb, then they have to pay per unit, correct?
No, if they have a hotel CUP and they're double listing as an Airbnb, they don't have to get an STVR license. They have one or the other.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah, so.
That's not their understanding. I've talked to them.
Well, because some of the people that you're referring to don't have a conditional use permit as a hotel.
Who do you know that I was talking to? I didn't have you
I'm
on
sorry,
the call with me.
it was Councilmember Pai.
Okay, because I don't know anybody other than a bona fide.
Yeah, I apologize. So if we were to, going back to your comments, if we were to, let's say, exempt permit fees for some of these boutique hotels and spas, they actually wouldn't apply to some of these that we're referencing because they're not actually boutique hotels and spas. They are residential properties that were converted at one time to a hotel or spa without a conditional use permit. So they would be required to undergo that process to obtain a CUP in order to qualify.
Could we stick to just the bona fide boutique spa hotels that came into this world as boutique spa hotels or operating as spa hotels? Do they, if they advertise rooms, 12 rooms on Airbnb, 12 separate rooms, do they have to get 12 permits?
No, not if they have entitlements.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to hear that. Good. Made progress.
Mr. Gardner, were you finished with your comments? All right, does anybody else have any comments?
Councilman Betts, oftentimes you say, I listen to you, and oftentimes you say, I already know what you're going to.
I knew you were going to ask that. I've been serving with you for so long, and I wasn't counting your vote.
May I finish?
You may, go ahead.
I listen to you, but you say to all of us, and I'm listening to you, you say, I already know what the vote is. Please stop doing that.
I'm not going to stop.
Now, on the small hotels, what's the definition of the small hotels?
Staff, I don't know.
Okay, but
they got a CUP to operate as a boutique spa hotel.
What I'm saying is you came up with it, didn't like it, but you didn't define what a small hotel is. Now, I heard you.
Well, talk to the hoteliers. The hoteliers. Talk to typical hoteliers in the Hoteliers Association. This is their concern. Their understanding was if they advertise a room for rent on Airbnb, they have to pay per room unit charge, and that the standard was by the unit, not by the address. I'm just bringing up the question. I'm not stating anything. I'm raising the question here, and I think the answer we got.
And you said we should do small hotels. What are you defining as a small hotel is what I'm asking. And then I can go with you, but.
Okay, well, all right. The boutique spa hotels, the staff can come up with a definition. If anybody's got a CUP to operate as a hotel, it's in our code, right?
Yes, essentially. So one of the things, and Councilmember Pai, for the example that you used with the getaway, and I think that that's where it gets confusing, is because we have many properties that to all of us look like a hotel, but they do not have entitlements. And so the getaway is one of those. So in that situation, yes, he is having to get a separate permit for every unit that he has open and is operating. So he, if we were to go this route, would not qualify for one, he would not qualify. He would still need to get a permit for every unit because he is not an entitled hotel. But small boutique hotels that are entitled could utilize the platforms to advertise without having to get a short-term vacation rental permit.
And what is okay, if a person has a larger hotel, 20 rooms or so, I'm trying to find what is the definition of a spa hotel.
So
somebody with an entitlement.
There is a definition with the Greater Palm Springs. I always get this wrong. Visit Greater Palm Springs.
CVB?
Yeah, the old CVB. They did identify large and small hotels, and maybe that's a definition that you can look at in the future if that's a direction we want to go, and maybe it's something we put on the subcommittees.
I don't want a loophole.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but I'm just trying to figure out what we could do to identify that, because I see the point that's being made here tonight, but I think the subcommittee is going to have to go back and do some work on that.
Yeah. Thank you. Initially in our conversations, my initial discussion was 500 radius, and I'm willing to go back to that if we can approve that tonight.
I would be supportive of that. Mr. Gardner, you said you had something else?
No, again, I raised the concern of where you have a property, like I said, where you're crossing a major arterial, but it's still within 500 feet, but that major arterial acts as a barrier between neighborhoods, a walled, gated community on one side of a major arterial like Pearson, and then you have another walled, gated community on the other side of Pearson, and you do a 500-foot radius, you've knocked out a chunk of one or both of those.
But Gary, we have
doesn't bother
walled
me.
gated communities that are back to back. And to go from, for example, the neighborhood where I live, Sunset Springs to Rolling Hills, if I was able to, I could hop a 6 or 8 foot wall and be there right away. But if I'm going to walk, it's probably better for me to get in my car and drive there because it's a long ride.
Russell, we're getting too old to hop walls.
Well, I used to be able to jump a 9-foot
And that's
wall.
another good example, is like between your neighborhood and Mr. Betts' neighborhood.
And that's the reason I would support it, because I can hear Mr. Betts when he's outside
Did
kicking
you
his
hear
car
the
because
band
the
I
tire
had the
went
other night?
flat. You kicking your tire or the car because the tire went flat. I can hear him yelling. So I would support a radius rather than 500 feet door to door. So I think it's a good compromise.
I personally don't, I'm trying to find us all a problem, and that was how we came up with it. But
Well, I think what I've heard here tonight is to try to get to a motion is we still need some work to be done, but I think that you need to amend something.
Yeah, I do.
I also think we need to add the radius in there.
Yeah, I've got that on my note.
We need to add the HOA piece in there to put on the permits.
That's part of what the correction piece is.
Okay, and then is there anything else that we talked about?
I'd add my wish list, but it won't
I know,
pass.
I understand that. Trying to get to a consensus here. So it's a working document. I know I've told you guys this before, and I know it's frustrating sometimes, but I am going to request that the subcommittee reach out to some of these hotspots and bring some of you guys in to have some conversations, so that we can continue to work on this, and hopefully within 6 months we can bring it back and even strengthen it even more. This isn't something that happens in communities all the time, and I think we are trying to be as proactive, even though we're being reactive to some of the issues. So I hope this helps. Mr. Gardner, why don't you lead the motion?
All right. The one motion, well, the two additions that you brought up, I haven't had time to find the exact location where they need to go, but one we do need to add is an amendment to the hosting platform section 5.44.045. So Gerald, I have this written out for you, but it's add a new subsection 1 to 5.44.045 and a new subparagraph B to read, a hosting platform shall not accept or publish a listing that does not include a valid current city issued permit registration number within the listing shown in a format as designated by the city. What that will do is allow our code compliance staff to notify it'll keep a listing that doesn't have an STVR license from going up in the first place. So that way we don't have to go around and have an illegal one taken down.
So you're going to make a motion.
I'll move that we adopt the amendments to the vacation rental regulations with the amendment that I just read, plus identifying several minor typos that Ms. Newsom identified, and Ms. Pye, who is our perfect proofreader and does a fantastic job with that.
I pointed out some typos.
And then we convert the 500-foot walking distance to 500-foot radius. Ms. Newsom, do you need to have, as part of the ordinance, the language requested by the mayor to reach out to the application has to have the STVR or the HOA, or will you just put that on as part of your application?
It'll just be as a part of the process.
Okay, so once again, then the motion would be to adopt the amended vacation rental regulations with the amendment that I read, plus the typos, plus the converting it from 500 feet walking distance door to door to 500-foot radius.
And if I can add, let me first get a second on that. I'd like to add a friendly amendment.
I'll second.
And then a friendly amendment to the fact that we, all STVR owners will have a printed copy of the main rules and regulations for the renters.
I can accept that. Do you want staff to create that?
I think to create a list of what is important to be in there and that they are required to have that in the home. Is that
Can I read to you what we do have in
Yeah,
there currently?
Parking permit also.
So it's prior to the use of every unit as a vacation rental, the owner or the agent shall provide a copy of the Good Neighbor brochure to the responsible party and require such responsible party to execute a formal acknowledgement that he or she is legally responsible for compliance of all occupants and guests with all provisions of this chapter and the city's municipal code.
That sounds great.
I got a question.
But that's already in there.
Hold on. It sounds great, but how do we make it so it's understood by a layperson like me of what needs to be in there? Is there a place that can we add a sample?
Yes.
In the ordinance of what that would look like, including how many vehicles, the time, the noise, the monitoring, the contact for local.
So that is what the brochure is.
So the brochure does that?
The brochure, yeah, it's kind of just a snapshot of all of those things, and that's what's required to be provided. It is also provided to any potential vacation rental owner at the time of application, so they acknowledge that they've received it.
Reasonable enough, then I would like for the residents that are having issues to make sure they look at that through our ordinance, and if there's any suggestions, please get it to the subcommittee to add to that if the brochure doesn't cover it all. Mr. Betts, you had a question?
Yeah, so on the noise ordinance, generally the public understands that after 10 p.m., you have to tone it down when you're a resident having a party.
It's 8.
It's 8 is the regulations?
It's 8 for any sound, like reproduction or sound production devices that cross a real property boundary.
Really?
Yes.
8 o'clock?
Yeah, I found that out today too. I was
That's right when the party's getting started, but okay. So
Well,
no
not me.
neighborhood
I'm going to
parties
bed at 8
then with
o'clock,
any
so-
noise crossing a property line?
Correct.
We know that we're loosening it up.
Okay.
I go to bed at 8 o'clock, so that's perfect for me. Mr. Betts is a night owl, so he's just getting started. All right, I have a motion and a second on the table. If there's no further comments, please vote.
Motion passes with Councilmember Betts against. This is the first reading as amended of the City Council amending Chapter 5.44 of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code regarding vacation rentals. The ordinance will return on November 7th for second reading and adoption.
Thank you very much. I have no other agenda items, but we do have to reopen public comments. Anyone at the beginning of the meeting that did not have a chance to make any public comments may do so at this time. You will have 3 minutes once you attend the podium. Matthew Young.
Hello, again. Very great meeting. I love your suit, by the way. And Mayor, hi, you're doing great guy. So I just wanted to point out some things that God put on my heart. Love thy neighbor and love ourselves. And put that down. I'm so glad that I got out the short-term rental business years ago. I was probably one of the first ones that started it. And now I'm renting my place out to homeless people for free. And I am a public servant just like you fine people here. Now, I walk the street sometimes at night helping people, sometimes during the day. And I've noticed that police officers are, I believe, targeting the wrong people. There is homeless people that are being victimized for being homeless and looking unfortunate than most of the people here and most people here. Now, I believe that when I first moved here, the police department, they were courageous, they were motivated, they were tough, and they went after the real criminals, which were the drug users. The sellers, the people that would sell the drugs. I've been in an incident where I was helping a woman out. She was 70 years old, and she was told that she was going to get arrested if she didn't move. Where was she going to move? If she moves to another spot, then you're going to tell her to move from there. So I do commend everybody here for building the hub. That's amazing. We do need something more permanent, though. So, and it's awesome that you're building a new park and you're putting $5 million into that. That's cool. But the homeless are going to find that park and then they're going to destroy it because they need a place to hang out too. So when I first moved here, police were doing investigations. They were knocking down doors, pulling out drug sellers out of their homes, arresting them. And now all I see is police harassing people that maybe have drugs, maybe look like they have drugs. Just the other day, I was pulled over for lights not being on. I turned my lights on before he even turned on his lights. And when he approached my car, he asked me, do I have any drugs or guns in the car? I spend my time on mountains praying to God. I feel that is very offensive for profiling. Then right after he was done with my situation, he went straight over to a lady that dropped her bag. She was on the floor putting her bag, her stuff in the bags.
Mr. Young, that's your 3 minutes.
Okay, so we should do better. And I will be back in 2 weeks.
Thank you,
with
sir,
more
your
people.
comments tonight. Anyone else like to speak on public comments that are not any items on the agenda that did not get to speak at the beginning? Appreciate everybody attending tonight. We'll be back in a couple weeks. This meeting is adjourned. No, we'll be back in 3 weeks. We get an extra week. This meeting is adjourned.